Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Queen City Unleashed. Today, I'm here with Brandon Stirewalt of Town Brewing. Brandon, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, appreciate you having me.
How you doing?
Good, brother. How are you?
Good, good. First things first, before we even get started into anything, I have a gift for you. Awesome. I know that you are recently engaged.
Thank
and from
you.
Queen City Unleashed, we just wanted to say congratulations that we're very happy for you.
This is a very good bottle of Prisoner, too. Okay. So I'm very excited about that.
Good, good.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, I just wanted to start with that and say congratulations. I know that that's got to be exciting. Can you tell us a little about it, or what happened? Was she surprised?
Yeah, a little bit. So after 7 years, you know when you know. So 7 years we've been together. We've been, in a strange world with COVID and so many things throughout our relationship in this time, and things happening within our lives, careers advancing, all those things. And so we finally got to a point where, I think we want to take the next step and talk about starting a family and those things. And so we knew we wanted to get engaged. We just didn't know when and where and what and all that. And so I kind of tried to keep some romance and spontaneity in our relationship after 7 years and planned all this behind the scenes. And I kept it pretty locked down for 3 months while I was planning it. Trip to the Outer Banks and all that, and had some things to throw her off. But day of, she was very, very aware that I was acting weird. Yeah. So when I started pulling out like a white button-up shirt to go see the lighthouse that we were supposed to climb and all that, she kind of knew, and then when I got a speeding ticket on the way to the beach as we're there because I'm so nervous, and there's Hurricane Debbie that I'm trying to literally outrun to get to the lighthouse in time to propose before the rain comes. So, yeah, she was very well aware. He gave me the ticket. You
can't tell him that you're...
No, I couldn't look at him like, hey, man, can you cut me a break? I'm nervous. I'm about to get engaged. I'm trying to beat the hurricane because she's in the truck with me. And the last thing I want to do is to an officer is be like, can I step out of the vehicle and talk to you? Let's just go. Let's just get to the beach. So, yeah. So anyway, so the whole day, it was on edge and nerves, even after 7 years. It's still nerve-wracking, but everything went smooth. I called the photographer. She was able to come out early. We got to the lighthouse early, proposed, got our pictures done. As soon as we got done taking pictures, literally, the rain came.
Look at that.
And so,
look at that.
And they say that I believe it's an omen that a knot solidified by water makes it tighter. It makes the knot tie tighter because it's harder to
I've heard different variations of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the one we'll go with, right? Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, cheers. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I got it pulled over going to our engagement photos because we took them in my hometown of Richmond, and my wife was not from Richmond, and so she's calling me, and I'm seeing her like 4 cars back, and I'm trying to give her directions and didn't pay attention and crossed a road into like one-way traffic. And if you had made a different turn, you can go that way, but I couldn't have crossed the road.
Right.
And the cops pulled me over, and I'm like, go find parking, I'll find you in a second. And I'm like, sir, I'm about to shoot engagement photos. My wife was lost. I was trying to help her. He was like, oh, no worries. And then on our way to the shoot, they see us dressed up, and they're like, congratulations. And I'm like, thank y'all. I appreciate it. Because that's oh man, that sucks. But still, the moment was great after.
It was also one of those points in the way to the Outer Banks where there's billboards that say, got a ticket going to the Outer Banks, outerbankstickets.com. We got home the next week. I had 6 letters from attorneys, so like that quick, yeah. So it just added to the quirkiness and part of the story.
Hey, well, congratulations.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Okay, so tell me a little more about your background. Where are you originally from?
Yeah.
How did you get to Charlotte?
So I'm born and raised in Rowan County, North Carolina. My family has been there for a couple hundred years now. They immigrated in from Germany, so strong German heritage from 1700s, immigrated into America. They settled in Rowan County, North Carolina 250 years later. I'm born in Rowan County, North Carolina.
Is most of the family still there?
A lot of the family is. We're our immediate family we can trace directly back. There's a monument at a church they built. They built the first pipe organ in the Southeast. So,
wow.
Yeah, some of the original settlers to North Carolina. They predate, obviously, the Revolution coming into Carolina. So they literally had to swear an oath to the King of England before they could come into America, to renounce kind of their German heritage and be part of the English settlements coming in. Yeah, so So anyways, they settled there. Most of the family, our immediate family, is still right in there. But now my family has spread out just a little bit. The first cousins and all that have started New York and Atlanta and
spread their wings a
Tennessee
little
and,
bit.
move a little out of the old North State.
So how did you get to Charlotte?
So I actually went to UNC Charlotte when I was in high school. Yeah, go Niners. And that had me kind of fall in love with North Charlotte. I was in university in Harrisburg, kind of that area for a long time. And then I moved into the east side of Charlotte and really fell in love with the east side. The east side is one of those places where everyone looks like everyone. They look different. They all sound different, speak different, have different heritages. I think the east side is probably our most diverse part of the city. And I really enjoy being there because of that, because I get to experience so many different types of people in one setting here in the Piedmont of North Carolina still. So it's fantastic. Yeah.
Okay. One question that I've been thinking about recently, and literally had this conversation with multiple friends the other day, hobbies. I feel like as adults, sometimes we struggle to find what our hobbies are outside of work, and not just like hanging out with friends, because I feel like that's just part of life. I don't know if I consider that a hobby. Do you have hobbies that you enjoy currently?
I mean, I will say that drinking beer is a fairly large hobby for me.
Mine is bourbon. I'm a big bourbon guy, so I guess that is somewhat a
Charlotte's
hobby.
a boozy town. You know, like a lot of the things I feel like adults have to do in Charlotte center around having an adult beverage. That's one of my hobbies. Softball is a big hobby of mine. I play adult softball. I've been on hiatus for a couple seasons now, just with a lot of things I've been juggling with work, but ran a lot of softball teams in Charlotte. I got a couple championships hung up in the old corner pub uptown that we'd won around. So
I can't swing a bat to save my life.
Really?
Soccer, basketball, I can throw a football and run a route, but something about swinging a bat was just never something I grew up doing.
You're a good Bill dude. You come out to the field with me, we'll figure it out.
I don't know. Something about it and now I'm playing golf and it's a different swing.
Golf is a different swing. Golf and softball are a little more like than baseball.
Oh, really?
So the softball swing's a little slower and more methodical.
Okay.
And so there's a little more similarity, but part of the ambition on softball though too as a hobby was you got to drink beer afterwards. So there again, it ties back into the adult beverage with that hobby. So it was a good excuse on a Wednesday night to like see the boys and have beers without saying, hey, I'm just going to see the boys and have beers, right?
You're doing some physical activity in the middle of it that you can count off as when your doctor asks, are you active during the week? Yeah, I play but we also drink the calories right back afterwards.
Right, or the fiance asks like, we've got this on, like, honey, I've got softball, I'm committed. You know, this is a team. You don't want a man that you love to be a quitter or not focused in on his obligations, right? And so, that's one of those things that it made it a really good middle of the week that I knew that I had a chance to. It was me and the boys versus the world for an hour. The phone was in the bag. I got to really turn everything off and have that hour of the week be kind of sanctimonious to a point to where it was almost like mental health treatment at that point.
Absolutely.
Where if you needed to get a hold of me, you had to drive to the softball field.
Yeah. I'm very similar with soccer. So I play in a Wednesday league for soccer, and I've played soccer since I was 3 years old. It has been a part of my life for that long. Even in college, whether it's intramurals, I've always played. And there have been seasons where I was in grad school where I didn't play and I could tell that I was missing something. I'm competitive. I need to get it out. And so when I don't, it feels like it comes out in different ways. And it's like, I need to get it out in a good way.
Were you a high school athlete as well then? So, ever since it's ingrained in us at this point.
I was playing year-round, indoor, outdoor, summer seasons. And there was a time last year where I don't like playing winter seasons here because I know it doesn't get too cold, but I don't want to play soccer at 9:30 and it's 45 degrees outside.
Right.
I don't love soccer that much anymore. I love it, but I'm not getting out of at 9:30 in Matthews, and I live on the west side of Charlotte. But there was a week where I told my wife, I said, I need to get out and play. Like, I really, really need to get out and play. And work was kind of crazy, and I'm like, I just need that release that sport gives. And I got out there. I hadn't seen the guys in about 2 months. And people say guys don't show emotions or anything. They got out there, they're giving me hugs, dude. We've missed you, good to see you. And for an hour, like you said, I was just smiling. Like I drove home with the biggest smile on my face. Like I love the fact that I can do this, and it is a break from everything else. All I'm thinking about is the other guys, ball, goal, and that's it. And I think it's super important for people to have things like that.
Yep.
Give them a break.
Have you ever played the indoor game?
Futsal?
Yeah, indoor soccer.
With the walls, or
yes,
I hate the wall soccer.
Do you? Okay,
I hate it.
It's so high speed. It comes off more like hockey and stuff. There's some folks down in. I think it's Steel Creek. There's an indoor facility down there, and I've been down and watched some friends play. And it's
the true soccer purists hate it because the really smart soccer players know how to make it so that wall is extra.
It's part of the game.
Yeah,
100%.
And so we got to the point. I played it growing up somewhere. I knew if I hit the ball straight into the corner, I could cross the ball across the goal from 30 yards out. Yeah. That doesn't make sense from a soccer perspective because you can't defend that. Like you're trying, and you get caught on the wall, you're trying to defend, and then they just hit it off the wall around you and take off. So I love doing it, but I hate it.
You're making crossing routes to yourself.
Exactly. Give and goes with yourself. So as someone who loved playing soccer earlier, like we hated that because it changed. Teams that weren't better than you but only played that style of soccer would beat you. And it's like, you guys weren't better. You just only play with the walls here. And that's just drove me crazy. In Charlotte, where do you guys like to eat? So I know you live on the east side, you work on the west side, so there's a lot in the middle. What are some of your go-to spots?
So I am a creature of habit, and my fiance is quite the opposite. So we do have a rule on any major event, so anniversaries, birthdays, Valentine's Day, those type things that we'll go out for. We have to go to somewhere we've never been. So Charlotte is no short of places that you've never been because they're opening at a faster rate than you can get to them.
We might be getting more restaurants than people to the city.
I believe that at this point. I think everyone moving here is opening a restaurant. So we like to try new places for that. As far as it goes though, for where I'm at time after time, where we're going, we've got some go-tos on the east side. Portofino's right by our house. I mean, it's just standard old-fashioned, good, New York Italian food, if you can go that way with it. Those folks are great. There's a couple small spots over there too. Dish in Plaza Midwood has always been.
What kind of food is that?
Dish.
Dish.
Dish, right beside Thomas Street Tavern. Dish is great. All like Southern comfort food. They've got some great vegan options too if you're into that. But I'm into their Cajun meatloaf's really good. They've got a great pot roast. Sal's Pizzeria on the east side is another good favorite of ours.
So you guys do eat a lot more on the east side.
We do. We stay pretty hyper focused to the east side. Once I get home, there's so much in Plaza and there's so much vibrancy in Plaza. Everything is kind of at my fingertips within a 2-mile radius.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. We tend to eat. We're lucky enough on the west side to be getting some really good restaurants over here.
Yep.
And so now it's like, we want somewhere to eat. Let's just go to Azul, or we're gonna go to Pizza Baby. And so we're gonna run over here, grab a bite. Yep.
We did eat Restaurant Constance for our last anniversary.
We've been needing to make reservations. Like you have to book it sometime in advance.
You do.
But I've heard great things.
We went July 4th weekend, so everybody was out of town.
Oh, perfect.
So that was the perfect time to kind of sneak it. Now they were still packed, but the reservation list wasn't quite as long for July 5th, I think, is when we went, because I think the 4th was on a Thursday.
I've heard really good things about it.
So all farm-to-table stuff. They're getting a lot of food from like some of the Matthews farmers markets and things down there. But everything's farm-to-table. Everything's super fresh. We had a blast. Wine menu was fantastic there as well. So some really good bottles of wine. And all the servers were really, really knowledgeable, so they could kind of guide you through the evening more than you had to kind of figure it out for yourself.
That is one thing that I know I'm getting older because I appreciate when they're like, hey, if you're ordering this food, here's a red or a white that would probably go best with this. And if you're getting this appetizer, here's an entree that goes nicely too. And I used to be like, let me just order what I want, leave me alone. And now understanding more of like there's an art to some of what you're
Right.
eating to like get you to a good place.
Yeah, I'm
at
almost
the
to
end.
the point now where it's like, just have chef send out whatever he wants or she wants. Like
Yeah.
make sure that like they're in charge and not me, because I promise they know more
A
about
lot more.
this
Even
experience.
with bartenders, I've gotten to the point now at really nice places, I'll ask a bartender, "Hey, I like whiskey bourbon. Give me something that you like to make." And I have found some really, really great drinks. I don't think there's been a moment that I've been really disappointed in something when
Yeah.
I trust them to say, "Take me where you want to go," or a drink
Yeah.
that you like making that no one ever asked
Yeah.
for. And they seem to make their day. They get excited about it too.
Hey, I mean, right? It's the same thing for all of us. If you're interviewing somebody that you have more passion about, you're going to be more interested in interviewing, right?
Yeah.
If they're making a drink that they really feel like they can make at a top level, they're going to put their foot in that one.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So yeah.
In Charlotte, how long have you been here exactly?
So my whole life, I grew up in Rowan County, which is technically the metro area. So I've been in the metro area my whole life. I moved to Charlotte in around 2007, 2008, somewhere like that is when I was going to UNC Charlotte. Lived in Concord actually for a little bit. And then I guess I became a Charlotte resident about 2007.
But you've been hanging around here for a while, so do you have some hidden gems in the city of Charlotte? Or maybe a place that you think is underrated?
So, yes. Stagione is a hidden gem in Charlotte that not enough people know about.
Please don't tell people. I love that
Yes,
place.
it is. And it's tucked away, hidden right there in the Eastover area. That is probably one of our favorite Italian spots in the city
so
that's
good.
tucked away.
Have you had the dessert?
I don't know.
It's like a donut-ish.
Yes. It's I forget the name of it, but yes, I know what you're talking about. It's also, Stagione is great because you sit down and there may be, some big Italian guy that looks like he's off The Sopranos in there with a suit on eating, but then somebody walks in jeans and a t-shirt for a casual dining night, right?
Yep.
And like you can really fit everywhere in between on that. Yeah.
That is one thing I will say though. Charlotte's food scene, unless you're going to very, very, very fancy places that everyone knows is fancy, Charlotte's dress code at restaurants, even a really nice restaurant, is pretty casual. Like
It is.
Some people dress up because they choose to, but I've walked in and seen executives, I'm assuming, of businesses, and they're just kind of there in golf polo, slacks, just kind of hanging out, which is different for me because I'm used to anywhere that's considered nice, people are going to put a jacket on us. And people here, I've seen really nice restaurants, someone just has a really nice t-shirt on.
Yes.
And I love that because it feels like we're not trying to impress anyone when we go out. It's just you and the company you're with and you're there for a good time.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, being comfortable in what you are is probably the biggest key to confidence too. So a lot of that kind of breeds into just us really kind of loving and embracing the culture. Sure.
Yep.
So.
I've had my style isn't super unique. I sometimes think it's kind of dull, but it's been like that since high school. And it's stepped up and elevated as I've made a little more money. But you will find me in a t-shirt and jeans most times of the year, and it's comfortable.
Now, sometimes you go to places on maybe, I won't name neighborhoods, but like South End, to where you may see somebody in jeans and a t-shirt, and the jeans and t-shirt they're wearing cost more than any outfit that I have in the closet.
Yes.
So there's also that layer of it too that comes into some of the designer wears and fits that we have in this city. So
I am not one of those people. You will find me with my jeans, American Eagle, Pac Sun. That's where I'm getting my jeans. But there are some, and my wife, and getting married really exposed me to a lot more of the pricing of women's fashion, where she would tell me some of these brands. It's like, yeah, those jeans, they're $200. I'm like, it's the same jean material. Why?
It's my Levi's, right?
Right. I don't understand why, but you're right. You do see some of that. So it might be the basic t-shirt and jeans, but it's a lot more.
My other hidden gem, and this is probably the best hidden gem in Charlotte. If you are not going there or haven't been there, I can't call you a Charlottean, is Alexander Michaels uptown. If Al Mike's, if you haven't been, you've got to stop in. It's an old school house in 4th Ward. There's still technically a residence on the 2nd floor. Downstairs, the owner's still in there on a regular basis. It's the same folks bartending for years and years. Same regulars are stopping in. The What It Is pasta is one of the best dishes on the menu. So stop into Al Mike's. Got to be my top recommendation for Charlotteans. If you go there, that's where you take somebody as well from out of town to show kind of what Charlotte is. This tucked away place in a neighborhood right in the heart of Uptown.
This is cracking me up. I don't know if you know Sean Cosner from Third Rocks. They do the wine and beer festival in South Bend.
Yes, I do. Yes,
he has a clip that we literally put out from an earlier interview, and he said almost verbatim the exact same thing. If someone's coming from out of town, you take them because it shows them what Charlotte is. Like, loves the building there too.
Yep.
My wife did try to get me to go there another night, but I was looking for something. Like, you're in the mood for food and you don't know what it is, but you want something that you've already had before.
Yes.
Like, you're looking for like a comfort meal for you.
Yes.
The one night she suggested it, I was really like, I want something that I know.
Yep.
It's a comfort meal, but we really need to check it out.
Now, if you go to Al Mike's, that can turn into your comfort place, right? So that's
you give them a chance to get there. Yeah.
They used to do a Monday night meatloaf. I think it's switched nights, but they have specials throughout the night. I would recommend just go for a simple casual date night through the week. It is a great place to just relax, boss team tucked away.
Okay.
So that's great to hear that Sean said that.
Yeah. Last question I have about Charlotte. For someone who is coming from somewhere else, visiting Charlotte, how would you describe Charlotte to someone who doesn't know the city?
So to someone who doesn't know the city of Charlotte, I think that's it's such a loaded question. And there's a couple reasons why, and I'll try to skim over these as briefly as I can without getting too depth, because we could run a whole podcast on the dichotomy of Charlotte and what it is and what it means to be a Charlottean. There's so many different neighborhoods in Charlotte that are all really individualized to income bracket, to demographic, to the type of entertainment and age of the neighborhood, and all of those things. Really, it makes Charlotte almost a collection of small towns in a way. And a lot of that is, Charlotte is a huge landmass city, right? I think we're up there close to like Jacksonville, Florida, I think is the largest surface area landmass city in the United States. Yeah, the amount of square footage, or excuse me, square miles, acreage within the city of Jacksonville. I think it's the largest city. Charlotte is right there with it, though. And you can drive for 30 minutes straight and never leave Charlotte, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a very large city. And so I think that some of that almost sometimes makes Charlotte's identity to some weaker, or that it's hard to define. The one thing that you can say is banking, right? Obviously that we're a banking epicenter here for the East Coast and really nationally in Charlotte. And sometimes that banking culture comes off as very, I don't want to use the word sterile. Let's say vanilla, right? It's like people may think it's boring or bland.
Right.
But I think what I've come to realize is the vibrancy in Charlotte is understanding each of the neighborhoods. I can take you, if you've never been to Charlotte, if we parachuted you in and you've never been to Charlotte, I could take you to a different neighborhood 3 different times and you'd have 3 different experiences, right?
Yeah.
If I take you to Plaza, you're going to have a different experience than if we're in Ballantyne, right? If I take you
different
to
than Noda.
Right, different than Noda. If I take you to Uptown or University, you're going to have 2 different experiences. If I take you to the West Side or down towards the Arboretum, all of these, are going to be really different experiences. So I will say, though, that a lot of times I do end up describing Charlotte as vanilla, but vanilla is my favorite flavor, And so the one thing I love about Charlotte being a little vanilla sometimes is I love to go get Superman ice cream and sprinkles and the birthday cake, all that stuff, other places, and when I come home, my favorite flavor is sitting there waiting on me.
Yeah.
And I know it, and I know what it is, and it's easy to navigate. And the new growth is fresh and spontaneous all the time. And like I said, we've got new places, and we're never short of things to do. Yeah. So I think Charlotte's really complex. I think if you want to know Charlotte, you have to figure out what you want to know about Charlotte. If you're looking for nightlife, I can show you that. If you're looking for cuisine, I can show you that. If you're looking for infrastructure, I can show you that. I think it's really almost what each person wants out of it to how they can define their city.
That's how I've actually started to define it, is there's something for everyone here in Charlotte. No matter who you are, you're coming from somewhere else. Charlotte has a neighborhood cuisine entertainment that will suit just you. And if you choose to stick in that bubble, you can have a great long life here in Charlotte. I think the beauty of it is when you start to venture out into some of those other things and you see all the different things that Charlotte has to offer. And maybe if that's not your regular, but it's things that you like to dabble in from time to time, I think that's when you really get to take in all that complexity you're talking about.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Another identity thing, and we're going to switch into beer here. I tell people that Charlotte's got to be one of the largest beer per capita, brewery per capita in America. I don't know if that's true. I think we're up to 40 breweries-ish or so in the Charlotte metro area, how it's defined. How did you get into the brewery scene? And describe some of the brewery scene of Charlotte from someone who works in the industry.
Yeah. So a couple quick facts I can give you. The state of North Carolina now, I believe, ranks 9th in breweries in the nation. That's not per capita, but just 9th in the nation.
Number.
There's some small states that will skew the per capita number because you get states like Rhode Island and Maine and places that the amount of breweries is so much less because of the per capita, it goes up so much. But we're 9th overall in actual amount of breweries. I think it's at 420 breweries in the state now, somewhere right around that. And that fluctuates with some openings and closings. In the Charlotte metro area, liquid producing breweries, we're up to 80.
Whoa.
Yeah, so, and that's covering the Tri-County area in South Carolina all the way out to almost Shelby, up in
not
Rowan
quite Charlotte
County.
metro.
Right.
Okay.
So not the Charlotte proper, but the Charlotte MSA is up to 80. We're in the Charlotte like proper. I think we're like you said 40 something.
Yeah.
Right in the Charlotte Mecklenburg area.
Yeah. Okay.
But the greater Charlotte area, I think we're up to 80, and that's liquid producing. If you count taproom only, second taprooms, all that stuff, it edges closer to 100.
And when you say second tap rooms, that's going to be places where they don't make their own beer but serve a lot of beer.
Correct.
From different places. So like a Charlotte Beer Garden.
Well, no, like Legion, South Park, right? Legion South Park is not producing beer there.
Okay.
But it is a tap room of the Legion brand, right?
Okay.
I think Middle James has got one in Waxhaw. You'll see. There's a couple others I can't call right off the cuff right now, but that have a second tap room. O&B just opened a second tap room in Ballantyne.
But they're not making beer
But they're
there,
not
but it's
making beer
O&B
there.
beer.
Mhm.
Okay,
There's no
interesting.
liquid production going on there, but they are serving from that brand. It's a brand extension. So, to get back to the question, how I got into beer, beer was growing when I got into it. So I was in food and beverage during college and stuck with that and really enjoyed food and beverage in my early and mid 20s because it gave me the lifestyle I wanted, right? I mean, I was living that vampire life, out every night and, scratching my eyes with the sun high in the sky in the mornings or afternoons. And I was living that life. Or afternoon. And in the winter, I think the sunlight that I got was like slim enough to where I felt like I lived in Alaska at some points through the days of no sun. But it gave me the lifestyle I wanted. I really enjoyed, I was a socialite, I really enjoyed the nightlife, and I made enough money to be able to support that and live those hours as well when I was in food and beverage. Obviously, as you age, that tends to wane for some people. Some it doesn't. Some people stick with that lifestyle, and there's no shame in that. Hey, if I could, I probably would have, but I've become accustomed to a little more traditional now. They're still working in beer, some of that flex. But I was in food and beverage, and I wanted to move on from that, and I got into sales. I was in textbook sales for a while, traveling around the Southeast. And that was also very fun in my mid-20s because I got to be in a different college town working in textbooks every night of the week. And that was a ton of fun. But
You ever make it to Virginia Tech?
I did get to Blacksburg quite a bit. I would go through that Radford and Blacksburg area. Yeah.
Okay.
Blacksburg's a fun town.
Oh, yeah.
Radford was a really fun town, too, because
that's a different kind of
it
fun over
lived
there.
on the college. Like, everything was college there.
It's a different, there was going to Virginia Tech and Radford being a school down the road, we had lots of jokes for Radford. That
Yes.
Don't go party there. Be careful if you're going to campus because the things that we heard happening over there, very different than the things we heard happening on Virginia Tech's campus. So we got a lot of love for Radford, but also a lot of jokes for him
VTech was a beautiful campus. The brickwork and everything around that
Hokey Stone.
campus.
So we actually have a query there. maybe
Now
30,
that I
45
didn't know.
minutes
Okay.
from campus that mine the stone that you see on those buildings. So really, it's coined Hokie stone, and it is very, very expensive, but they only make it for us. And
That's
so
crazy.
stone runs out eventually, and so now tech is starting to figure out creative ways that maybe we don't need to put every building in Hokie stone, but maybe do we put kind of like the old houses where the front might be Hokie stone,
Just
and
the
rest of
facade,
it,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and because you still want it to have that touch, and does kind of tie the campus
Yeah.
together nicely. But yeah, Hokie stone.
Yeah, yeah. So traveling around doing textbooks, I got to see things like that, like all these beautiful campuses
Yeah.
and ACC schools and SEC schools, and it was fun. But it got to a point. Anybody that's ever been in traveling sales knows it wears on you at a point. And I couldn't have the softball nights and the Monday night footballs and the dog that I wanted, and the relationships were tougher when you're out of town that much. And so I came back home and started in furniture sales. And anyone who does furniture sales, I salute you, but it was not for me. I did that for about a year and a half. Very similar to car sales. It's a lot of weekends, a lot of holidays where you're having the President's Day sale and the 4th of July
They have
sale.
sales for every minor holiday.
It's almost like the brewing industry. Any excuse to have a party, we do. Any excuse to have a sale, they do. And so I'd worked for a furniture store. I made good money at it, but it was not the life for me. And so I looked at it and I said, how do I put these things together? How do I take the food and beverage love that I had, the passion that I had, and what I really like about that, and couple that now with the sales experience that I have. And so I broke into beverage sales for Red Oak Brewing Company. Red Oak is one of the oldest breweries, second oldest brewery in the state, actually, and one of the largest in the state.
They're up. Do they not have a facility off 85 driving north?
Right there where 85
Yeah.
and 40 come together,
Yeah, okay.
right
Drive
outside of
past it
Burlington.
all the time.
Yeah, so technically that's Whitsett, North Carolina, but Burlington's probably the larger area
Okay.
you would know. But yeah, so I worked for them remotely in Charlotte. I was the sales and delivery down here for them. And that was not to in any way shed on Red Oak's payroll, but that was a very, very entry level job. And so when I say very entry level, my salary from where I was at in furniture sales got cut in half.
Ooh.
So that was a big change. And luckily at the time, my now fiance, we had been through some changeover from jobs and moving in together and things that we had supported each other. And she said, hey, if you're going to make a career change, do it now, not 5 years down the road when we are trying to start a family and buy
Right.
a larger house and do these things. So through her support, which I think all of us have been supported by or supported a partner in some way.
Amen to that.
Yeah, so we're only as good as our counterpart, right? But she was able to allow me to do that and to chase a passion. And within now 5 years, we can just fast forward that part. Through that, I've been able to rise to director of operations of Town Brewing Company now. So had some experience there at Red Oak. Was the number one salesperson there for a while. Then moved on to Triple C. Worked for Triple C for almost 4 years. Really got an education there. They're really down and into the nitty gritty of what they're doing in brewing and the science and why. Especially when I was there, we had a huge team of. There were 2 chemists on the staff at the time that we had as cellar guys that. Both are in other brewing programs now.
How cool is that to go to college, study chemistry, and people think you're going to go work in a lab? It's like, no, I work in breweries. Yeah, I mean that's pretty
These guys
cool.
were also tricking their chemistry departments at NC State and Clemson to be able to brew beer on the school's dime when they were in chemistry, to buy ingredients and things that they were homebrewing with while they were in college.
Smart.
So these guys always kind of had a knack for how to figure out the job in the ways they wanted through chemistry. But yeah, that they allowed me to learn a lot, and from them, I came on here at Town and started as the sales manager, and then moved on to director of operations.
So, director of operations. I was a director of operations in a hospital. For me, that meant jack of all trades. You're doing a little bit of everything.
Yep.
Filling in the gaps. What is director of operations for you at Town Brewing?
Yeah, head janitor most of the time, right? It's a lot. It's drinking from a fire hose most of the time. it's overseeing. It's overseeing operations. A lot of times people try to do, and I try to really understand and own my own role. Sometimes I don't even know if I understand my role. I try to understand and own my own role in the fact that a lot of times people say the director title is managing managers. And I want to tell people really quick, if you do have a director title or you are a manager, if you're a manager and have a director and all they're doing is managing you, they're failing you. If you're a director and you feel like you're managing managers, you're failing your position and your subordinates. As directors, we are supposed to do just what it says. We're supposed to direct people. We're supposed to give them what we would like accomplished, and then we're supposed to teach them how to do that, right? And that's how we got to the positions we're in, is we understand what it takes and what we want out of those positions, teach those people, and then let them do their job. We're not supposed to manage them, right? We're supposed to teach them, but we're supposed to follow up and make sure they're supported. Do you have the things you need? Do you have the resources you need? What can I do to better facilitate a work environment for you or an area to set you up for success?
Tackle and block, remove the barriers.
Exactly. So I try not to micromanage or manage my managers even. I try to just, a lot of times, and then this is going back to sports, for a lot of us that played sports, is I try to look at it from a head coach philosophy, right? I bring philosophy to the team and make sure they're set up for success. Now, a lot of times, don't get me wrong, it is still putting out fires.
Absolutely.
Rolling sleeves up. There is days still where I have to jump behind the bar or jump in the kitchen because we're a person down or whatnot. But I also do want my staff to see from that aspect that there is no job that I ask them to do that
you would not do yourself.
100%.
And that to me is that's good leadership.
Yeah,
That to me is when your team recognizes and respects, because there's a respect that comes with that when they say, all right, he's willing to do it and he does it well. We don't have an excuse. And for me, when I've had great leaders above me, they're doing stuff that I know they probably don't want to do, but they're doing it with pride. They're doing it with integrity, doing it with a smile on their face. And they have other things that they have to go do. So if that is my only job, I have no excuse to not excel in what I'm doing.
And that's what a lot of times, are the subordinates at the lower level, the folks that are working for a living here, that they think he just asked us to do this or she asked us to do this because they don't want to do it. And I promise a lot of times I would rather be doing those jobs.
Than the calls and the other fires that they never see.
Than the things that I'm stewing over for hours and crunching numbers and running budgets and, figuring out how we're putting one foot in front of the other to keep the brand identity congruent and to keep the budgets on track with making sure we're spending in the right directions and all those things. And it's a trick all on its own that people don't see kind of behind the curtain. That's and hopefully they shouldn't. There is some majesty to there being some Oz behind the curtain for folks, and kind of how do they pull that off and how does that work, and so we hope that we bring that philosophy to our folks on a regular basis.
As a leader in some of the past jobs I've had, there was a team that I had in the past that I would ask them to do things, but would never give them too much detail of the politics behind it. And we just kind of plead with them. It's like, hey, I really need you guys to do this. And then after I left that team, and this is a while back, after I left that team, I actually started hanging out with them outside of work. Because I was one of those people, you work for me, I'm not, especially our industry, healthcare, is still very kind of a little stiff.
Yeah, a little rigid,
Yeah, a little rigid. So I'm like, we'll be cool at work. I'm not seeing you in my off time unless it's a work event. So I started seeing some of them, and they were like, we did not realize a lot of the stuff that you were dealing with in the back. I said, it's not your job. You don't need to know that. My job is to make sure that you don't have to see that. But when I ask you guys to do things, this is why sometimes it looked like there is desperation behind me, because I'm like, I need you to do this. Otherwise, I know what can happen if you don't. They're like, we had no idea half the time. And to me, those are the good leaders. I've had some leaders that running things, and it's not till later. They're like, yeah, I remember that time we were doing this. This is actually what was going on. It's like, how did you hold that in? But I think there's something to be said for leaders somewhat sheltering the people that they're working for. I think that's something that gets overlooked from in a leadership perspective too, that sometimes there's a responsibility to protect you from the mess that you don't need to be involved in. And I've really respected the leaders who have done that for me. I'm sure your staff probably does the exact same. Same.
Yeah, and I'm very fortunate here at Town Brewing Company. Shout out to all my staff. They are fantastic. They work hard. They work hard sometimes in an industry that, we can't pay for the same positions or equal positions what other industries do. We're a cottage industry. We're small business, and they work hard for the love of the game here. And I really respect that out of them too. And we'll go to war for them if anybody ever wants to. But we all, that is one thing in beer is our lines do blur a little bit sometimes with the hierarchy, right? We're not as rigid.
Yeah.
We're all sitting down together and having beers after work. Sometimes right before work concludes, we're having a beer together. And so there is a little bit different environment, and it does take a really special person. My fiance is in corporate America, works in multifamily housing, and she talks about a lot of times, she's a director as well of her team. She's director of marketing technologies. If you're hearing this, honey, I hope I'm getting that title right. She is in MarTech, and she talks about, she's like, I don't see how you guys do it sometimes to where like you guys party together, you work together, you do all this together. And I tell her it takes a really special person in this industry, in the restaurant industry in general, but especially when you're a manufacturer, when you're a supplier of beer, to know how to separate what is work, what is play, and sometimes work is play and play is work. And that really kind of folds in together. So shout out to my staff for always being able to shoulder through that and know what we're doing when we're enjoying ourselves and when we're having to work hard.
Yeah. Okay, you talked about your staff. Talk to me about Town. How did Town get started? How old is it? Give me some of the cool facts of who Town Brewing Company is.
So Town started, there was originally 4 guys. They were home brewers together, all practicing attorneys. They practiced at the same firm. And they were home brewing together, and they thought, man, we'd really like to start a brewery. This was at the same time everyone in America was standing in a garage home brewing and said, we'd like to start a brewery, right? And so they thought that it was a fantastic idea. Ask them again now, after all the work's been into it, if they think the same. But I think that, the proof's in the pudding there. The fruits of their labor have paid off. I think we have a beautiful brewery. It's taken probably a lot more work than they ever imagined to get to this place. But they started that dream in 2012. Is when they said, hey, we're going to do it. We're going to start a brewery. But, anyone who's ever started a business will know writing a business plan, getting investors, getting loans, navigating what it's going to take to rehab a building like this, like all of those things, it comes with no shortage of planning and an investment of time.
And stress.
And so many ways that you never thought would be stress, from zoning departments and building inspectors and things that get delayed 6 months when you need to be making revenue now to be able to start paying off your investors or loans or things. So shout out to the owners here. Those guys have done amazing. They found this building. They were looking for something to really create neighborhood is what they wanted in Charlotte. They wanted a place where neighbors could meet together. And the west side of the city had just got Blue Blaze off the ground at the time. And there was starting to be an awakening of the west side, of some revitalization of the west side. And I will say the west side has done such a great job, in my opinion, of not bringing a huge gentrification process to the west side, but really trying to support the existing community and build within, right? And I think we have 3 employees right now that live in the same zip code that we operate out of, which is fantastic. So they found this building. It was an old auto garage that needed rehab, or it was going to have to be taken down. It was going to have to be. The back wall that you see over here where the concrete is, that is actually, we're underground right there. So really ground level is above where that wall is. That wall is a new wall. They had to prop the old wall back with the jacks and push that out, and then pour that concrete wall throughout there to be able to have that to support. And so it was an architectural marvel, absolutely, to what they did to rehab this building. I think everyone's grateful that they did. Here again, if you would have asked them in the middle of the process, would they have done that? I don't know if the answer is the same. But once it was done, I think they were really, really proud of this. And you can see it's an old auto garage by the bay doors here that we have,
Yep.
and we tried to keep that
Which is
integrity.
a great vibe for
It
breweries
is,
anyway.
and the roll-up doors just kind of let the patio and the tap room flow together, and so really cool vibe that we got to keep throughout this. There's a lot of history on this side of the city by where the old Coca-Cola plant used to be over here. This was an auto garage. Beside was a garage that worked on tractor trailer trucks, so the larger trucks. There was an ice cream storage place in the building adjacent to it. So a lot of history over here industrially on this side of the city. But
what did you say about the West Side?
West Side, best side, baby.
Absolutely.
West Side, best side.
As a resident
let's
of
make
the
sure
West
everybody
Side,
knows that.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree.
West Side, best side. We love it over here. I'm partial to the East Side because I live there, but since I've been working on the West Side, man, I've really gotten to know it and understand it, and it is a fantastic part of the city. Anybody that's listening, if you're not coming over here to Pizza Baby, to Restaurant Constance, to Azul, Tacos Azul, some of the best tacos.
They're so
Fire.
good. There is someone with the dough in her hand, and she is smacking
making
it down
their
and
own corn
making
tortillas. Yes,
and it is just it never misses.
So we're thankful to be a part of. Wesley Heights is our neighborhood, but the West Side as a whole, the 5 Points neighborhoods out here, all of this has been just such a blessing because we did find a place that the owners found that we are able to create such a neighborhood vibe here, and so that's a little bit of the backstory of town.
So
2018 is when we got doors open
here.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
kind of going in that same conversation, talking about town being on the West Side. In Charlotte, I've gotten to see this a lot more. Breweries being attached to neighborhoods and being staples. What are some of your thoughts there on breweries kind of being monumental points in their communities that they're in? When I think of the West Side, town is one of those kind of staples of the community over here. Like, you want a beer, we have friends that we live on different parts of the West Side, but if we're gonna get a beer and we don't wanna drive somewhere too far, we're gonna come here. And I think for the vibe that you guys have here, it feels very neighborhoody. It is not, and I don't say this as a dig, I say this as something I appreciate. It's not overly posh. It is gritty. It is like you are going to hang out with your neighbors. And we have seen some of our own neighbors from our neighborhood hanging out here. So it really does feel, like a piece of the neighborhood. What do you think the impact is of breweries in the communities that they're housed in?
So the breweries are really cool. They're really unique. A lot of people in Charlotte, for whatever reason, have thought we might have opened too many breweries. And I say shame on them for thinking that. Breweries are, look, the reason that I got into brewing, which, if you don't mind, I'm gonna.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I do love my beverages. So I'm gonna crack another one while we're sitting here talking. But I do love craft beer. Don't get me wrong. But the brewing culture and community is a big part of why I wanted to be in this industry. And I really think that breweries have become community centers. Breweries are not just bars, right? You're not taking the kids to a bar. You're not taking grandma to the bar.
That is a very good point.
There's a lot of places maybe the dog can't go to the bar, but we have 1-year-old birthday parties. We have 70-year-old birthday parties. We have dog days of summer. We have so many things. We have kid-focused events. We have very adult-focused events. We have a lot of different things that we try to shine and give the community equity, right? Not only in just a great place to come have a beverage, but 3 to 4 nights a week, we've got live music on our stage, and we have all local artists, all folks that are trying to push out of their community and grow a little larger that we're giving a stage to. We have local craft artisan vendors in here on a regular basis, holding markets, one, so that they can sell their products, two, having classes on showing how their products are made and teaching others how to do those things. We work with visual artists on a regular basis. We have community organizers in here. We work with Sustain Charlotte on a regular basis. We've hosted Charlotte City Council. A good friend of mine, Braxton Winston, used to be Mayor Pro Tem, stops in for beers here and there. And we've had the Parks and Rec Department come in and speak. We've had county commissioners come in. So all to say, I don't think when you think of a brewery, you should think of another brewery or another bar or another place that a taco truck pulls up, right? I think you really need to think of these as they are communal centers, right? And not every brewery is going to grow out to the distribution size of Noda or Old Mecklenburg. Some breweries are just very content with being a small brew pub and being their neighbor's favorite place to go.
Yeah.
Right? So I do think that they've come in a lot to support arts, culture, family, community organizing, but also, here to go back to the point of, that I working in a chemistry environment, there's some sustainable efforts that we've worked with Charlotte Water.
Yeah, talk about that. Let's talk about that beer.
I've got a beer here that we've worked with Charlotte Water called Renew Brew. And this is just to showcase another thing that we're doing as breweries. We really strive for sustainable local practices, right? And we talk about sciences and then agriculture and things that we can tie in with that too. So this was a very special project called Renew Brew. What we did with Renew Brew was we took reclaimed recycled water and put that into a beer. Now, I know that might sound a little iffy at first, right?
Give us some more details
because
about that.
what I try not to use here is the evil word, wastewater. Right, because people just have such a stigma with the word wastewater. We're trying to use recycled, renewed, refreshed, rejuvenated water. But what we did was we took what is called effluent water, which is where water is discharged from wastewater treatment plant after it's been filtered, cleaned, so many different processes that if you ever have any questions about, please look up what is going on at these facilities. It's amazing what Charlotte Water does for us. And also, the ability to clean wastewater is how our city grows, right? If you don't, we have enough water in the southeast and coming off the Catawba that we can grow there. It's our ability to be able to treat our waste that holds infrastructure up sometimes, right? If you've ever heard of these sometimes pauses on building in new areas.
Yes.
Right, we don't want to use the evil word mortuary, right? And we don't want to say that either, but sometimes there has to be pauses so that they can get up to standard on how much wastewater they can use. Anyways, what we did was we took that effluent water, and a company called Xylem, who is a global water solutions company, came through and treated that water. They did a reverse osmosis filter first, which is a membrane that pulls the water through and clarifies it with at a microscopic level. And then from there, they had what they call an advanced oxygen treatment, which is they created ozone on site. Ozone is a pretty, it's a hard chemical to keep stable at this level, or a molecular structure to keep stable at this level in atmosphere, because it wants to just become oxygen. It wants to become O2, right? Ozone usually sustains at a higher level. But with that, ozone can be injected into water as an O3 and disperses and is a cleaning. So they call that an advanced oxygen treatment. To what it can do to help clean the water. Then it goes through a double carbon filter and then finally a UV filtration as well. So really 4 additional cleaning processes on this.
Just the water alone.
Right. I mean, when we got this water back, it is as close to, and I don't want to get too nerdy into water chemistry because we don't want you to take a nap right here. But the water was as close to H2O as possible. And there is some semblance of, we do want some minerality in our water within brewing, and we back add that. We'll add gypsum and calcium chloride and things back to our water to get the profiles that we're looking for. And we need some of that for enzymatic process within our mash and things. But man, we got to start with a blank slate with this water. We got H2O with really nothing else to it almost. And so we were able to create the exact profile we wanted. We took it to QCBF, Queen City Brewers Festival, and launched it there. We were very tight-lipped about it until that. It was a very surprise launch. And I forgot to tell Charlotte Water and Xylem that there was a competition associated with the beer festival, because I was so in the weeds getting the label done and the things done for it and all the logistics and how this worked out. And I was like, oh crap, I forgot to tell them we entered this into the competition. We won. the competition. So double blind taste test, it won. We were through the moon.
Oh, that's awesome.
Proof of concept was immediately solidified that not only could we make a beer from reclaimed recycled water, but we could also make an award-winning beer out of it. And
So there's innovation. Beer has been made for hundreds of years, but you guys are finding
thousands of years. Yeah.
Right. So you guys are finding ways to innovate in an industry with something that nobody would think of. So there's, and I'm sure I want you to speak more to this. There's got to be a balance of the science and the art. You said you didn't want to nerd out, but I do want you to, because it's something you're passionate about. I think what I found is sometimes people will support places or start going to places because there are random facts that they know about them that they just think are cool.
Yeah.
I am one of those people. Like, if there's certain facts that I find out that I'm like, this is so neat, I'm a fan, and when I tell my friends, it's like, that's the fact that I want to hook you on to go. So I do want you to nerd out about it. Talking about the science, the arts, and the marry of the two when it comes to brewing.
So it is very similar in some ways to culinary arts. When you get into people who look at the molecular gastrology of food, right, and really start to understand how fats and proteins are breaking down and at what stage they're combining.
That's what I studied in school.
Exactly. So you're very well aware and understand, when we look at certain proteins and lipids and proteins and things, to how they bind with others, there's this very direct science to how those things behave and interact. But there's also an art of, now, how can I take this, what I understand scientifically, and turning it into something that is unique, preferable, beautiful, like all of these things combined, right? And that's what our head brewer, Federico Della Torre, does. He's going to kill me for giving his whole government name, but Fetty's our guy, man. And Fetty was a student of engineering at UNC Charlotte as well, go Niners. And Fetty is back there on a regular basis, making sure that our processes are exactly what they need to be scientifically, right? How our yeast is behaving, what the health is on yeast, right? Because a lot of times, the yeast, a lot of people think there's so much in the hops or even the malts, and a lot of things have to do so much with yeast and how it behaves, and there's such a science behind that as to how healthy that is and how much nutrient we're giving back to that and how many generations we get out of that yeast. And so,
can I ask you a question about that real quick? Because I don't understand all of this. So he's talking about yeast, hops, malt. I'm sure there are a few. Can you quickly give kind of explanations of some of the more known pieces of this and what they do in the brewing process?
Yeah, so the first ever food law in the world that we know of was Reinheitsgebot in Germany. And I know that we've got somebody here with us today that might speak a little bit German. But Reinheitsgebot was the first, as far as we know, worldwide, the first FDA food law type of regulatory body, where the government said you can only put this in beer. And just to give you a brief history on beer, beer has been drank for thousands of years by people because it is safe, not necessarily because they were all, dancing to the gods and celebrating fermentation. A lot of times beer was drank because it was a safe drink. The pH of beer, which is a way we measure acidity and alkalinity on a pH scale. The pH of beer is fairly low. It sits in the 4s, usually below 4.5. So it's fairly acidic, and then it also has alcohol in it, which is a sterilizing agent in there too, right? So there's no known human pathogen that can grow in beer. So we can make bad beer, but we really can't make unsafe beer.
It just won't taste good, but it won't kill you.
Correct. And so for that reason, beer was regulated to be what it is, so that there was some food safety with it, with ingredients and what they were putting in it, so they weren't putting toxic berries and type things right in beer. So they regulated it to malt, hops, and water at the time. They didn't even really understand yeast at the time in 1516, and when Reinheitsgebot was implemented. And then after that, they started to understand yeast. So an example of what a malt is really any grain product that you're going to start with for the base of your beer. And realistically, the malt has a lot to do, if not with the yeast the most to do with the beer, as far as color of the beer, flavor of the beer, the body and ABV of the beer. All that mostly is dictated by your malt,
And that's going to be how much malt and the kind of malt.
Yeah, so there are maltsters here in North Carolina and around the world. Maltsters.
What a great name for a job. What do you do professionally?
So
I'm a maltster.
if you're a maltster, it sounds like some gangster stuff, you know.
Yeah, I'm a maltster. Like that sounds cool.
Yeah. So a maltster, they operate a malt house. The malt house is what happens when fresh grain product comes in. So a lot of times it's barley. It may be wheat. It could be corn. It could be rice. It could be some other adjunct grains that we use. But a lot of times it's barley. And what they do is they roast that barley. So think similar to a coffee roaster, if you will.
Yeah.
It's how a maltster operates. They are getting a desired roast on that. Sometimes that's color, sometimes that's certain taste. It depends on the original product that come in, whether it's barley, wheat, what type of barley it may be. And they kiln at different temperatures to get that roast they want. From that, whatever color that is, it's the same with coffee, right? Dark roast, blonde roast, all these things, right? That we get difference out of coffees. And those provide a lot of different tastes as well in our beer. Then we go into, obviously, the water that we bring in to mix with that. Charlotte is actually really, really great water. Charlotte has great water from Charlotte Water. They're a great organization. They send out fantastic water to tap. And then we also have a carbon filter in-house here. That once it comes off tap, it goes through a carbon filtration before we use it as well. There is a little bit of preferred minerality in Charlotte water without it being heavy water in any way,
right?
But just enough minerality that it's fantastic for brewing. And then from there, we boil that wort that we've made. So we cycle the water over the grain and we get what we call a wort. And then that wort is boiled.
Can you spell that for me real quick?
W-U-R-T, wort.
Wort, okay.
Yes, so wort, or W-O-R-T, sorry, not W, W-O-R-T, okay. Wort. And so the wort is something that is boiled, and that separates the sugars inside of the boil. So those sugars are what we're wanting to get. How long you boil as to how big of an ABV you can get. The larger amount of grain that you use can give you more sugars, and then the longer you boil,
that's how you gotta get your higher volume.
Yeah, you can break down those complex carbohydrates into more sugars, right? And so from that wort is then sent out to a fermenter, and so there can be some hop additions in that boil too for bitterness, or we can do dry hops with that as well. So those are where your hops are added.
And that's where you're gonna get that's where it's gonna go from your more regular beer to IPAs?
Sure, now all beers are gonna have some hop content in that. It's just how much and what type of hops.
Is that what defines an IPA? Is the percentage of the hops, or what is that? What is that definition between? Yeah,
so an IPA is definitely going to be an ale yeast, which is the IPA. The A is for ale. So you're going to get what defines an IPA is definitely going to be, it's an aled product first, but then amount of hops and where we're hopping and how we're hopping those. And there's some definitions of style that it's in the final product to what you're looking to get is what that style is, more than it necessarily is always the methodology.
Okay.
Right. So some IPAs may be heavy hopped in your boil times. Some may be in the whirlpool. Some may be that they're dry hopped after they're cold crashed and finished fermenting. Some may be added during fermentation. There's different ways and methods to do this. It's really the end result of what you're looking at, the taste profile, flavor profile, and ABV, to where we would maybe call something a pale ale versus an IPA, how heavy hop that is, what the bitterness.
So it could be the same ingredients, but depending on where you do certain steps in the process, can change the overall outcome.
And volume of ingredients on that too.
So this could probably a really dumb question. I'm looking at a lot of flavors here. You've got something that's pie-ish, you've got a watermelon. At what point do you put the flavors into the beer? And I know it's not, how does the flavor come in? That's something I've always been curious about.
There is no standard definition for this, right? The watermelon beer, we're adding that more in a state when it right before it becomes terminal in fermentation, and then a little post fermentation.
So you add real watermelon.
Yeah, purees, extracts, things like that, compounds
Interesting.
that we can get where it's concentrated out. Some of the beers we may be using a direct product to actually dose in there. Our coconut beer, we're taking actually raw coconut and putting in
That's
that.
neat.
Sweet Carolina pie, here again, just to tie in some of the agriculture, North Carolina agriculture that I was speaking of earlier too, when we were talking about sustainability efforts. North Carolina is the #1 producer of sweet potatoes in the nation. And so we're actually throwing in the boil on this, or actually in the mash, sorry. We're throwing 50 pounds of North Carolina sweet potatoes that
neat.
we've cut and roasted and put in there. And so,
Talk a little more about that agriculture piece.
different points of it is how we get all the flavors.
Okay.
There's no rhyme or reason, but
The
different
agriculture
stages.
piece for you guys, though, I know you guys you're supporting Charlotte Water here. Local agriculture, how do you guys here at Town Brewing tie that into the beer that you're making?
Yeah, so local agriculture is a big thing for me. Honestly, being from Rowan County, I grew up in a very farm-centric area. There was a lot of working farms right around us. My family had a working farm down the road. Some of our more distant cousins. So I really love to tie that in. We've worked with the maltsters that we were talking about. Right? So there are now 3 maltsters in North Carolina. There's Riverbend out west, Carolina Malt House here in the Piedmont, and then Epiphany Malt House in Durham. And we try to work with them as much as possible. So 95% of our grain now is going to be coming from a North Carolina maltster, and 95% of that grain is grown in the state of North Carolina.
Awesome.
So this is not only, when we're looking at Sprats now, this is not only a North Carolina brewed product. This is a North Carolina grown product. And that's something that we're really trying to focus on is how do we not become just a part of an economy here and a manufacturer of an economy, but how do we support the whole system and circular economy, right? How can we be dependent on North Carolina farmers and them dependent on us, right? Back and forth. We also take our spent grain when we're done with that, and it goes back to livestock farmers. So we've got beef and pork farmers that come and pick up our spent grain, and they're able to feed their livestock
animals
with that. Right, because all we're doing is robbing the sugars. That is still a very nutrient-rich feed from that grain that comes out, and they're actually doing us a favor. We're not paying to have it hauled off. They come and take that grain for us, and they're able to use it. So
you are part of the ecosystem of agriculture, which is not something I'd ever think about for a brewery. Like, again, I think this is why I wanted you to nerd out about this, because I think that's not something that a lot of casual beer drinkers would understand. You are taking grain, like you said, it's grown in North Carolina. You're supporting the maltsters, that's a local business there. You get the grain, and then it goes back to them. And so you are part of the agriculture sustainability of North Carolina in a way.
We are. And also, one thing to point out in this is North Carolina farmers, we're in a grain deficient state in North Carolina. We grow a lot more things like soybean and cotton and tobacco and other crops, sweet potatoes, other crops. Grain is not a primary agricultural product in North Carolina. So what we have found is they told us at one point that we would never be able to grow seed grain barley in North Carolina. And seed grain barley is the quality that we have to have for malted barley. It is top food grade. We can't just grow feed grain barley, which is what you would put in with horses and cows and feed that you would make, right? So we have to have seed grain barley in order for it to be what we're looking for malting purposes. And we are growing some of the best seed grain barley in the Southeast. And really, I would put it up against a lot of places nationally now. And so what we're getting quality. And those farmers are able to get premium price for that crop. We actually grow a winter barley in North Carolina, and it's harvested in the spring. We don't grow a spring barley here. So those farmers are able to turn that field again as well, right? And so not only are we offering a part of the ecosystem, we're offering really a new segment to that agricultural ecosystem to where farmers can get a higher quality crop that we're willing to pay more for, and at a time where their fields can be down, that they can actually still turn out. So it's an
Yeah,
adjunct
yeah.
at a more premium price for them. So I think really what we're doing, and Steve Troxner, our Commissioner of Agriculture, is very interested in beer in this state. We actually got some objectives coming up with him very soon to look at how we can further push into this and get more North Carolina farmers growing this grain for us, fortify these maltsters, these
Yeah.
malt houses, and really have more and more North Carolina breweries using North Carolina grown grain. And so we really like to be a pioneer for that here at Town. It's a big passion for us, but we want to also be able to push the community to see more and more of that.
I have an idea for you for a
Yes.
shirt. Support local farms, drink more beer.
Yes.
You might have the shirt already, but that is just, it's not something I ever would have thought, that by drinking beer, you're helping support
Yes.
local farming industry.
And that's something, I think I had a poster at one time I had made that, what was it? Drink beer grown here. Was one of my slogans. Drink beer grown here. Somebody had at one time a T-shirt or a hat that said "America, we grow beer." So I mean, how much more gung ho can you get there? But yeah, and a lot of times these folks in the rural areas too, they may be used to drinking a domestic beer product, right? They may not have had the exposure to
Right.
craft beer at eye level. But I think a lot of times, especially where I'm from, the folks that I grew up around, they'll pay $1 more for a hammer that's made in America or for a North Carolina product. And I think really exposing them to the fact that this beer is a North Carolina grown beer,
And that's a
I think
story.
really help grows our footprint.
Yeah, that's a story that has to get told.
Yeah.
Something that I care about a lot in my personal life is diversity, and I know that you all care about that in different ways. Can you talk to that? Because when I think of brewing, I don't think it's I'm not thinking very diverse. It's a
Yep.
very big Southern thing, growing in a lot of other places. What is that? What is the work being done to help diversify brewers in the brewing
Yeah.
industry, and what you guys at Town are doing with that?
So, craft brewing in America really started West Coast, started in California with breweries like Anchor Steam in California that were trailblazing at the time when Jimmy Carter signed home brewing into law. A lot more people got interested in starting up small craft breweries. It grew into, Denver in the Midwest, and then has really blossomed out in other areas as well now. But somehow, through all the diverse places beer has been, beer has stayed fairly homogeneous in what it looks like. Unfortunately, I am the atypical beer-looking guy that there is, right? Like white male, a little bit of a belly, very large beard, like all of the characteristics of what you think about. When I put my overalls on in the winter, like if you closed your eyes and said, what does a brewer look like? And then open them, right? Like I'm the guy that you pictured, right? And that's, it's something that we really don't understand why it has been that way, other than sometimes when communities start, they fold on top of each other, right? And they just become more and more mirroring to what they are, and you create an echo chamber. And I don't think that was ever done intentionally. And that's unfortunate that it happened, even though it wasn't done intentionally. And so now we have to look at how do we stop that, right? How do we stop it cold in its tracks and make that more accessible to people who don't look exactly like us. And a lot of times it's been a problem because we've been so homogeneous, because we've been in an echo chamber. Culturally, our consumers are the same as well.
Craft
right?
beer was not something that I grew up understanding or being on. Like I didn't get on to craft beer until I moved to Charlotte and lived across the track from Sycamore Beer.
Yep.
Like that was my introduction to it, and it's not something I'll say in Black communities that I'm part of. A lot of people aren't talking about like different kind of beer. Like we're gonna pick up whatever the domestic beer is, or Blue Moon or something, like the name brand stuff, and that's about where it ends
Sure.
for us until you get to places like this and we start going to local craft breweries.
Yeah, and there's also, why is that, right? Is it because there was no exposure to the product? Is it because there were no breweries in the area? Or is it because all of the bartenders at the brewery and all of the patrons didn't look like you.
Yeah.
And that's it's hard sometimes too for me to explain this to folks that look like me as to how it may come off intimidating to walk into a place where everyone doesn't look like you, and I remind folks, I'm like, look, you're not going to be as comfortable if you walk in a place and no one looks like you. You just don't have many places that has to exist for you, right? Especially when you're in a majority, that we don't, a lot of times the things that come off to us are not things that we recognize that come off to other people.
Right.
So, for us at Town, there's some ways we combat this. Our former director of operations before myself, director of operations and head brewer, Brian Quinn, who is now started Atomic Clock Brewing, in Durham. Brian started Atomic Clock Brewing in Durham. He started a program here called the Many Faces Initiative. And what the Many Faces Initiative is it is a scholarship program to get people of color into brewing. It's really cool. It's something that I have been very blessed to be a part of since I came on at Town and became the director of operations. That we host interns from around the community that may not have otherwise had a chance to break into brewing. There's some statistics too that it's crazy to me because I've always, tried to apply for jobs that maybe I don't fit the part for. Maybe I'm faking it till I make it. Maybe I did that in the beer industry a little bit.
Hey, but you're successful now.
Don't tell anybody. Maybe I'm still faking it. Who knows?
I don't know. You just nerded out about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
That's not faking it.
So, but sometimes you have to. And there is a statistic that African Americans do not apply to jobs that they feel unqualified for it. It's a disproportional rate.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
It is. And I know that very, very well.
Yeah. And that's something that a lot of times they say, I have no knowledge of craft brewing. I know no one in the industry. I know no way to break in. Therefore, I'm not qualified. Therefore, I don't apply. Right. And there's a barrier there. And all of these barriers here again, I don't think we've made intentionally. I think they've come up in ways tangentially from maybe other things that were happening intentionally in other areas or other ways of building and culture and how things came through. But I don't think these walls were meant to be. And so finding ways to break them down. So having a scholarship to host intentionally for a person of color, our interns have been fantastic. And we actually brew a beer.
I say one of them has a beer, right?
Yes. So we brew a beer every year with the interns. So our latest intern, Kevin Sampson, Kevin is, I know Kevin's going to watch this because Kevin watches all of my media stuff because he's my homie. Kevin is a filmmaker by trade. So Kevin is a really impressive dude. Kevin started the DC Black Film Festival.
Oh, wow.
He's a master's of film from American University. He's going to get mad at me for tooting his horn, so I'll get off of it in a little bit. But Kevin's a remarkable gentleman, great father, great husband as well. But Kevin made this beer, Mama Said Knock You Stout, through his internship.
That is clever.
Yes. He's brought
That's
back
clever.
Yeah. So he's actually got his kids' names on the gloves.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And then his wife on the bottom, we did on the day coat on that too. So anyways, he wanted to do a big stout. Kevin's a bourbon drinker as well. And so we were able to take some wort and put it in a bourbon barrel as well, or not some wort, some actually fermented beer, and put that in a bourbon barrel as well. And so this is a product that Kevin came out with. This is something that, here again, in our diversity efforts, we really try to give someone equity while they're in that internship. And I promise you, too, that the internship is not just for the interns. The internship has taught me more than I think, I don't want to say more than our interns have gotten out of it because they've gotten so much. Everybody gets what is each to their own. But, man, I've learned so much working with a diversity program like this and what I can do better and how I can be a better provider of opportunity for people. And one thing that's remarkable, the intern before that, and I have to mention her name or she would have been in my office with a foot up my butt pretty quickly. But Brittany McAtan, who's a very good friend, and she's a very remarkable person as well, and left the nursing profession to try to get into brewing through the internship that she had. And Brittany, one of the quotes that she has that I think was the most striking thing to me, that when I can say to people about diversity programs and what we need to do in diversity. And this, I want to say to everybody out there is this is a direct quote from Brittany, so please don't give me the credit for this, but hiring a black person is not your company's stance on diversity. If that's where it stops, then you've completely missed. Hiring is where it starts. The rest of what you do after that, that is what your diversity and inclusion program is, right? And I think that where we have to be as a mindset is how are we fostering an environment within our workplaces, within creating upward mobility and economical opportunities for people, not what we're doing as a hiring practice.
Retention is a huge piece of
Absolutely.
that. Retention, success, promotion, all things that somehow in today's time I feel like people miss, and then it's like we hired X amount of people and then they all left in 6 months. Like that doesn't
right.
that doesn't tell me you're doing
right.
a good job. Like
right.
you're good on luring them in, but not good at keeping them.
You were doing what you thought you had to do,
right?
Not the things that you needed to do.
This is systemic here, and that's
yes.
what I appreciate that has to happen, is that for these changes to happen in diversity, people, the majorities, have to combat stuff with systemic ways. You guys are doing that by having this internship program, giving out these scholarships, and that's something that I respect. And if you already weren't convinced that you should be coming to town, like I do with my friends, and we come and hang out here, this is one of those facts that I talk about that I will hang my hat on of why you support this business, because they care about the community. The West Side it's a black neighborhood. Like that is what this is. And so it would be crazy for me for breweries to come in and not do things to better or give opportunity to people who look like the community that they're in. And you guys are doing that. And to me, that goes a long way of earning my dollar and a lot of the dollars in black community. Like that's something that stands out to us of you care enough that you're trying to get people that look like us into this industry, whether we want to be in it or not, but you won't be continuing to be the barrier that prevents us from breaking into
and
that.
It's also, man, we want the 22-year-old guy or girl from this community to work here and drink here, that when their little brother or sister turns 21 years old, their first adult beverage is a craft beer from Town Brewing Company. Like that's how we create systemic bonds that tie us together over time, is to introduce people to this as it's never been a foreign concept to them, that it's always, craft beer is always a first language to somebody, no matter what you look like or what neighborhood you're from. And so here again, just to plug, if there's nothing else anybody takes from this, West Side, best side, we've got to keep reiterating that.
Yes,
right?
sir.
And so,
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Hey, well, I mean, I genuinely appreciate that piece of it, because I think that means a lot as someone who, again, didn't grow up with craft brewing and getting to Charlotte, and it does look very white. You said something that, like, if you're the majority, you don't know walking into a room. Brandon, there is very rarely a time that I don't walk into a room and know exactly how many black people are in the room.
Yep.
And it's very rarely that I walk in and I don't count, because we are the majority. And so when I see places that acknowledge that and care and are try to combat that, that goes a long way in earning trust and therefore earning business and returning business for a long time. So kudos to you and the people at Town for doing that work.
And that's not a me effort. That's a Town effort.
But it's a culture.
Collective. It is. It's a mindset that we all try to adhere to.
Yeah. Lastly, before we get out of here, I want to know, is there anything that you guys have coming up that we should know about? And tell us a couple of the beers you have, kind of your pitch of come to town, come hang out.
Yeah, come to town, come hang out. We are celebrating 6 years in September.
You guys throwing a party?
End of this month, we are.
Okay.
We're going to have our birthday bash.
What date is that?
September 28th.
Okay.
Is the last Saturday of the month. We are calling that 6 beers later, if you see what we did there. So we'll have music all day. I think we've got 5 bands going that day. We've got a huge market that will be out in the parking lot. We're going to have beer releases all day. We'll have some specialty food items. It's going to be a really big day for us to celebrate not only us making it to 6 years, but what the community has done to pour into that and kind of what we can give back to them as well. So should be a really fun day overall. After that, we've got just a ton of stuff coming up in the fall. The fall is the best time for beer drinking.
Football and beer.
football, beer. You get to put a light jacket on. There's fires in the evening. It's all my favorite types of beer. This is coming out today, actually, in the tap room. This comes out.
Okay.
Sweet Carolina Pie. So this is a seasonal for us. We always run something really fun in the seasonals. I've got some core beers back here that you guys have seen the entire show. We always have our Broken Tarded, that won Best Beer in Charlotte last year in Charlotte Magazine. We've got our Disco Hop is our West Coast IPA, and then RP1, which is potentially going to see a rebrand. Maybe you've heard it here first.
So that's award-winning beer over
Hey,
here.
Unleashed, baby. We gotta unleash something. So potentially seeing some news to come on that brand coming at the anniversary. But we always have a seasonal in the lineup. We go with a blood orange wheat in the spring. It transfers to a lime lager, then a watermelon kolsch. Then we go into this fantastic sweet potato amber, and then we go into a Czech dark lager towards the end of the year. So I love those seasonals. Sprat's always going to be our easy drinking beer. This is the one that you've been sipping on too. More in the domestic style, but all North Carolina grain, 100% in that. Come to Town. The Town, I really think that we have everything for everyone. We've got some great NA options on. I've got hop waters on. A lot of people are into the maybe sober curious crowd now, or folks that just aren't quite as into alcohol, but they still love a social life. They love being active, whatnot. So we try to make sure we're catering to that crowd. We feature some kombuchas from Lenny Boy, who's really good friends of ours right down the street. Also Walker Brothers in Tennessee. We've got a collab coming with them soon. So we try to feature that as well. We've actually got some gluten-free options as well with our hard tea that is 100 calories, 0 sugar, gluten-free, 4